Hey everyone, so today I'm going to be making two videos because I tried to make a video on how to properly fit a collar and how to properly fit a harness, but it ended up being about 40 minutes long. So I need to cut that down a bit because it's far too long for anyone to want to watch. So this one is going to just be on the collars and I'm going to make a second one that can be on the harnesses. I will also in future do a video on different types of collars that are not mentioned here, but I'll be going into more detail on them in a separate video. First we have Toby's collar. Toby's collar is a greyhound collar because he is a lurcher, which is a mix of a greyhound and something else. It's got a wider middle part and then thinner ends where the buckle is. We tried him with other collars, but they were just, because they were all the one size and they were fairly thin, they kind of cut into his extraordinarily draft-like neck every time that we'd be going for a walk with him. It's a nice strong material that doesn't stretch, so it does fit his neck and doesn't slip off, and it has this cushioned inside to make it more comfortable for him. This type of collar has got a buckle very similar to a belt, and so it's got all the little holes for you to decide how loose or tight you want it to be. When first putting on a collar like this, just pick one of the holes and then fasten it, and you can decide from there whether or not it needs to be tighter or looser. Here I've just fastened it on the one that I know fits Toby perfectly, just so we can see exactly what it's meant to be like. So it turns around, I can fit several fingers underneath it, it's not going to slip directly off the top of his head, it's very comfortable for him because it's not like constricting his breathing or his movement in any way, and it's not in the way, but it's not going to fall off. As a side note, he's not usually this placid. We just came back from a really long walk because I decided I wanted them to be tired so they wouldn't be bouncing around the place while I was trying to film, and he is completely and utterly exhausted. I like this collar because it has done the job perfectly, whereas previous collars he's either ripped them or he's able to slip out of them really easily, etc, etc. So this one is just a really good choice for him and his breed type. I got this from Maxi Zoo for I think it was roughly €20, and it's been well worth it. If anyone happens to be going to a Maxi Zoo in Ireland and wants to get one of these, make sure to ask the people at the desk because a lot of times they're kept out back because they are a good enough collar that they are constantly stolen, so sometimes they just keep them out back and they're not actually advertised. If I change the buckle hole to one hole looser, you can see that it can fall immediately off the top of his head. So it's much looser, it goes around and it just pops off. It's not painful for him in any way, it literally just goes right over his head. Because it'll always look slightly tighter than it is because of their hair, but that wouldn't be safe at all. Imagine if you had a lead attached to that and you're walking alongside a road and he got a fright and just tried to back up a few steps because a bus went past or something that he wasn't expecting, and suddenly he's loose and he can be hit by a car. He's going to run a lot faster than I do. I've only got 2 legs, he's got 4, he's got the advantage, and you're not going to get him back. It's just not going to happen, not if a dog is scared. It doesn't matter how good a dog's recall is, if they're scared, they're not coming back. Next up we have Beauty's collar, and Beauty's collar is a tad bit different. When I first got Beauty back in October of last year, it was somewhere between August and October, I have a fuzzy head, I can't remember, she was aggressive towards men. She was aggressive towards people wearing hats and hoods. She was aggressive towards other dogs. She didn't like me giving her insulin injection, amongst a lot of other things. So she just was not a friendly dog. She was not a safe dog. She was a dangerous dog. Because of that, I decided to get her this collar. It clips on really easily with this metal clasp, and it's got a massive handle on the back so that if I need to, I can hold onto that to stop her charging at someone, to keep her away from biting me when I'm injecting her, etc, etc. It looks a bit complex at the first glance just because it's not a collar you would usually see around the place, but it's actually fairly simple. You just do the clasp and it's on, that's it. It's got a ring for her tags. I've got one specific tag that basically just says I am diabetic and on medication, so just in case someone were to attempt to liberate me of my dog, they would realise that she's not worth it and give her back. No offence to Beauty, but she's not worth it. And there's a lovely, basically the thing for the tags, there's another one on the collar, so if they're going left and right of you, it moves with so that they're not being tangled. And then there's the little triangle one at the back, which keeps them straight if they're going ahead of you. So it's got 3 different types of clasps. They're very useful to have for when she's got a muzzle on. They're really useful because I can attach the muzzle to one of the clasps and leave the others free for the lead. And because I have it fitted correctly, I can only, for her, it's different than the others. She's got a lot of hair, so when you move that out of the way, it still doesn't go over her head, but I can only fit 2 to 3 fingers on this. Because Toby, he's more trustworthy. I can fit a good 4 to 5 fingers. With Beauty, I should only be able to fit 2 or 3, because 2 or 3 is more than enough. She can breathe perfectly fine. It's not in any way restricting her, but she is a dog that could snap at someone, and it is a lot more important to have her under control than it would be to have Toby, for example. On the off chance that she does somehow manage to work herself up to a point where she's going to slip this collar, what I use is I use a training collar. So a training collar is this orange thing I have here that kind of looks like a shoelace. Never use an actual shoelace. These are specifically made. Don't try to make them at home. It goes over dog's head and it stays up near the top of their jaw. So it is a type of a choke collar, but I tend to use it as a precaution rather than a choke on Beauty and on Toby as well. So it goes on just behind the jaw. I use one of these carbiners. I think they're called a carbiner hook, and I hook it onto that triangle part. So when she is pulling, if she decides to run backwards and try to get the collar to slip off, the collar will slip over the really thin training collar, and the training collar will stay on because it'll tighten. So she won't be loose. She won't be loose beside a road, etc., etc. Or if something were to happen where the clasp on this collar were to break, right, the training collar will keep her in place. So when it's on its own, it's a choke. Whereas when you clip it onto the collar as well, like I'm doing here, which is how I usually walk them, it just kind of sits there, it doesn't do anything. If this clasp was to break all of a sudden, the clasp would just snap off, collar is free, she's not. And I think they're a fantastic thing because they don't in any way bother them, they're just sitting there. It's like a decoration, to be honest. It doesn't do anything until you need it to, and I'd prefer to have it on them and never need to use it than to have them slip a collar or for a collar to break or something along those lines and the dog be loose and gone. So if anybody ever has a dog that is very prone to slipping the collar, I would greatly suggest you use one of these, because you can decide how tight it goes with the little black pushy button yoke, and it's just really useful. It goes at the very, very top of the jaw, so it's out of the way. It's not like grinding on any of their muscles. It's not doing anything like that. It just sits up at the very, very top, and you just tighten it enough that it just sits there, and you push down the little black button thing, which I do not know the name of, and it just sits there. That's all it does. You can still fit 2 to 3 fingers under, and it just sits there. So just for a bit of a better visual, obviously my arm is not covered in dog hair, so I'm going to show you with this. This is way too tight. You don't want it that tight. They've got no room to breathe. They've no room for if they're running around and you're panting and stuff and their chest is moving and all this, they need extra air. They don't have room for it. This, again, is still too tight. You can only barely get 2 fingers under there. So the looser it is, it's got 2 fingers underneath, and from here you can see that 2 fingers is actually plenty of room. Like you can see that it's dangling down in front. It's not going to be in any way restricting their breathing unless you're actually pulling on it. And it's going to just be, if they panic and pull back, it will tighten so they can't get off. It's a very, very simple device, but I absolutely love it because I train dogs for a living, and I don't like the number of people that have collars that are extremely loose on their dog, and then if I lose their dog, I'm going to be in a lot of trouble and their dog is going to be lost. So that's just not, it's not worth the risk. So my rule when training is your dog has to wear one of these. Even if we don't use it as a choke, we just attach it to the collar so they don't escape and run away, because I'd prefer to return any of the dogs that I take. Next we have Tia, which funnily enough of all the dogs is the one that has had the most collars, because Toby likes to try and eat Tia's face and neck, and every now and then he'll remember she has a collar and he'll try to pick her up by it, so it ends up actually breaking. We have very, very recently kind of gotten out of that habit, thanks everything, whatever's out there, because she's finally got a collar that has survived more than a week. So this one is kind of similar to Beauty's one, where it's got the slidey kind of material piece to tighten or loosen it, and it's got the clasp to just fasten it. It's still got the little D-ring for the tags, and it moves around her perfectly fine, but it's a little bit tighter just because her head is so small that it does slip off. If you have the 3 to 4 fingers under, it will slip off, so she, like Beauty, has got the 1 to 2 fingers fitting underneath. She also really likes neck scratches and will tilt her head like this all day. It's fantastic. She doesn't have fleas. She's been treated for everything. She just really likes neck scratches. So that's it for this video. I hope that it helped some people with choosing a different type of collar and what type of fitting to set it to. If anyone has any questions, please feel free to leave them in the comments below and I will do my absolute best to help. And thank you very much for watching.